Welcome to Blue Collar Startup, the podcast where we dive into real stories of everyday entrepreneurs and trade workers who are turning their blue-collar dreams into reality. Whether you're a student exploring the trades, growing your business, or just love hands-on work, this is the podcast for you. With a nationwide skilled labor shortage, we're here to explore the challenges, triumphs, and lessons learned from those who have built successful businesses from the ground up through integrity, grit, and hard work. From plumbing to carpentry, auto repair to landscaping, we cover it all. Get inspired, gain practical tips, and take the next step in your journey. So grab your tools, roll up your sleeves, and let's get to work.
All right, well, we'll get started. Welcome back, everyone, to Blue Collar Startup. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Nelson from Five Towers Media.
I'm the other host, Derek Foster, Daigle Cleaning Systems. How are you, Mike?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Well, I'm good.
Good, man.
Well caffeinated.
Got our new gear on.
We got our new gear, yeah. If you can see
Came
it
out
on.
good.
It did. Although, I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of in the, it was a large, and now it's like a medium because I dried it, and it's medium, and it shrunk a little bit, so.
You did that on purpose, didn't you?
I got to make my arms look bigger, man.
I get it.
So we're joined today by Scott and Stacy from Catamount Consulting. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, but you can go back if we did a whole show with these guys talking about who they are and what they do. Episode 58 is what Derek tells me.
Yeah, episode 58. We shot it down in Albany at the man cave.
The man cave.
The Bills.
The Bills
shrine.
Cave. Yeah, it is a shrine to the
Yeah.
Bills.
Are you guys still using that spot?
We haven't recently.
Yeah, we've done two shows there.
Two. And Chris has always, welcomed us with open doors.
Yeah.
And, he's over at Bredman's Landscaping. He's been super busy. I think he just acquired a new company and, he's working through that. So I haven't touched base with him recently, but.
And you put up somewhat of a studio at your place, right?
At my farm?
Yes.
Oh, well, it's in progress.
Okay.
I got.
Haven't you done some shows there? Because there was a different backdrop.
We did, yeah.
In the garage?
Not in the garage.
No, we've done a show in my kitchen.
Yeah, the kitchen studio.
Basically, the kitchen. The kitchen studio.
It looked rustic or
It's a farm.
country.
Yeah.
So I just figured it was your house and that was your studio.
Yeah, no, that's just our kitchen. But I'm redoing the garage to be a podcast studio.
Okay.
And I started.
Where's your wife going to park?
Well, we've got lots of parking.
It's always a debate in my house.
Undercover?
No.
Well, I have a school bus that I can sell you as a perfect mobile spot. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That actually is
You haven't sold that yet?
No.
I remember you talking about that.
Is it like
That's funny.
It's got American flag on top, says American Badass. Yeah, I think it'd be perfect.
Is it like finished?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wooden
Really?
floor. Yeah, it's all finished.
Can I sit in it and record podcasts?
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about
She
that.
sometimes works there.
Yeah.
So
We're
she'll
going-
work in her bus in her driveway.
We're taking the show on the road.
Yeah, we are.
Yep.
Holy moly, Blue Collar Road Show. Here we
Get
go.
my CDL.
I love it.
That would be fun, actually.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we're allowed to take it alone. We're gonna have to take Jason or Miles to drive
I'm not
us.
driving it, that's for sure.
Oh, I thought you were selling it to me.
Well, she
Well,
wants to sell it,
right,
but her husband does not, and her son does not want to
I
sell
would
it.
not want to sell it either. It
Yeah.
sounds
They want to
awesome.
put a car trailer on the back.
And they want to soup up the motor.
Yeah.
So all those things will be required if we're going to do a podcast.
Wow.
And anyways, and speaking
great.
of podcast locations, this is a pretty cool spot.
This is,
AGC corporate office in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Scott,
Albany.
tell us about AGC.
Yeah, AGC, in my mind, is the leading organization as it relates to the construction workers being part of. And there's a lot of good ones, so that's a big say. But they're doing a lot in lobbying, whether it's politics. They got a lot in the safety arena, a lot for their engineers, right? They're just doing really, really good things. And when you travel around the country and you see what they're doing on a national level, I'd argue they're one of the leaders.
Wow.
If you can only be part of one association and you're in the trades, I would pick this one for sure. So.
And I'm not working on my phone. I was just looking up. Brendan Manning is actually, he was episode 46. If anybody wants
Okay.
to check that out, they can find some more information
And
on
Brendan's
AGC.
is he the president? Is that what his title is? I don't know what his official title is.
I think he's the president
Yeah.
of this AGC.
This
The local
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah,
So,
down here in Albany.
Okay. So, there's a lot of other good groups. There's VPPPA, there's National Safety Councils, and there's the Associated Builders and Contractors that do a lot of stuff as well. But just to name a few, but this particular group I see really expanding and doing a lot, certainly doing a lot in New York State.
Amazing.
Yes, and each year they run their annual seminar at the Saratoga Convention Center, right in downtown Saratoga.
Yeah.
So that's a good spot to go and pick up an inexpensive conference, but lots of people there. I don't know, Stacy, probably 800 people, or is that too low?
Yeah,
Over
I'd say
1,000?
maybe a little over that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So great conference and great spot. actually might be another location to do a podcast sometime while the conference is going on.
Or at least park the bus.
Yeah, park the, park the bus.
If they won't let us in the building, we'll shoot it in the bus.
That's right. We're going to stay outside in the parking lot.
That's it.
Would be the first time that happened to me.
Yeah.
Scott, you want to just, real quick for the listeners, just so they know who Catamount is, you want to give us a quick rundown on that?
Sure. I'm Scott McKenna. I'm president and founder of Catamount Consulting. Catamount Consulting does lots of stuff, but to summarize it, safety training, leadership development, and industrial hygiene level stuff, mostly for the blue-collar work, mining and construction companies.
Stacy, you want to tell everybody who you are?
Sure, Stacy Spector, and I primarily work in the leadership development and curriculum building space in Catamount. I do many other things, but that's my primary role there. And keep Scott in line, which is a full-time job as well,
yes.
So,
It's not a full-time job.
and
Part-time.
Overtime,
Part to
actually.
full-time.
and I can say Scott and Stacy are fantastic. We brought them in to actually work with our team, and our managers and leaders keep asking when they're coming back. So they do a fantastic job.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's
Very
a fun time over at Derek's place with their people. They're fun.
Yeah.
It's a good group.
Yeah.
Small group, too. There's 10 of us. So
Yeah.
it's intimate
Good amount.
and fun and some good, solid conversations. And
Yeah, because you're working with the leadership team as far as that goes?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Different variety of ages, which is also unique. Right? A lot of companies you work with, their leadership team is very, very specific, generally older. So it's, we're enjoying that.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, I definitely encourage you to check out episode 58. We were geeking out about personal and professional development and the kind of stuff that these guys do, and my love of tunnels and mining.
I'll
Still
take
obsessed
it.
with it.
I'll take you to some.
I would love to.
Yeah.
It scares the hell out of me, which is one of the reasons why I love it, because it's just being that far
Yeah.
underground when you're in just the whole idea of how it all happens.
Yeah,
But I won't
there's
go
some-
down that tangent again.
There's some interesting places we can go that
Yeah.
are relatively local. Yeah.
I'm in.
It's cool. We take field trips all the time.
All right. I like field trips. I'll get
Yeah.
my permission slip signed, and
Yeah.
we'll go.
Bring your bag lunch.
That's
and
it.
We'll be ready to rock and roll.
There you go.
Very nice. So we're mixing it up a little bit with our format today. So we've been having a lot of conversations via email, text message, phone calls about some different topics. One of those topics that I put out there, I have this idea, and it's a working idea. I don't actually have it fully fleshed out yet, but one of the things that we see is obviously a big challenge with workforce development, not just in the trades, in all industries, but we're here to talk about it specifically for the trades. And one of the thoughts that I had was wondering if the reason why we have such a challenge with workforce development is because we're more focused on creating employees, and for the younger generation that are growing up on TikTok and all the social media channels and seeing all the influencers and all the content that's out there, they're not necessarily interested in becoming employees for the rest of their lives, and sometimes they can look at it that way. What they're interested in is owning their own business, being an entrepreneur, a business owner. We recently had Munter Enterprises, and one of the young guys that's working over there, a real smart kid named Alex.
Yep.
Even he in the show was talking about like his long-term plans, what he wanted to do, and he's like, "Well, I'd like to own something like this someday."
Yep.
So it's so that's what we're here to talk about today, is kind of explore that a little bit and throw some ideas around and just see what we come up with. So and I know, Scott, when you and I talked about this on the phone, you had some immediate thoughts as far as pros and cons for this. So let's start with the cons, right? What do you think is why that's a bad idea for all the blue collar kids out there to start thinking about owning their own business?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it a con, right? It's but if we can't have everybody owning businesses, then we need people like Alex to be able to run our businesses and Mike's business and be able to be holding accountable a group of people, right? It takes like 27 ownership brains in order to work inside of those environments, so they can each manage their own crew. It's so that's my initial thought, anyways, right?
Yeah.
But it's I like the fact that there is young men like him coming out that's already thinking in that direction and interested in it. Is it a lofty goal? Maybe, but it's certainly obtainable. And secondarily, it, again, not as a con, but how many different groups of people, companies, do we need doing the exact same thing?
Yeah.
Right. I would think that there's some sort of a limit to that. At least if we're looking at it holistically, we're sitting back and just saying, how many excavation companies do we need between Newburgh and Plattsburgh? And is there enough to work for all of them?
Well, it's like, one of the things I see right now too, and we don't have enough of any of them, right? So it's kind of like, there is a lot of opportunity.
Yes.
And then the other side is that there's going to be a lot of them that don't figure it out.
True. And my thought isn't that, look, at any time you try to find someone to do something in your house, plumbing, heating, electrical, everyone's busy, right? So we certainly need more people, but do we need more companies, right? If the local excavation company grows so they've got 700 employees and there's a bunch of Alexes that are out there that are more than able to run the crews, they just have more crews. And I think would be the ideal situation.
I have some follow-ups, but I want to pull these guys in on this. Stacy, what do you think?
Yeah, so I would look at it as, I believe that there's enough for anyone to, become involved. There's so many different areas it can go into, but where I see, some of these young entrepreneur mindsets is a lack of, training or support that they have to make them successful. So it's great that they have that idea or that mindset. We're just very outdated in the resources that we have available to coach that young person. And if you look at the whole system of public education, it's designed to create employees, essentially,
Right.
back from World War II, factory workers. That's the system, and that's how it's been, and it's very outdated, and we need updated programming. And so that's where I see, like, what the biggest struggle or the gap would be, is it's great to promote that mindset, but then, they're sort of left with a 50-50 chance of success because of the lack of resources or coaching available, and that needs to change.
Good point.
D-Rock, what do you think?
So, to follow up with what Stacy's saying, I think, there are those opportunities that are out there, but are the students in schools, whether that's public school or trade school, getting the realistic picture of what that means to actually own and operate a business? The opportunity and the option will probably, always be there if somebody wants to take that leap. But in reality, is that a possibility for that individual based upon their skill sets? And Mike, you and I have talked a lot about new businesses struggling to generate sales. And when you have a system already established for you, it's a lot different than creating that system yourself. I see it on the franchise side with some of our franchisees, and they're great operators. But if you put them there to create the actual systems, they would probably struggle a little bit, So I think everybody's different, and, giving them the tools to be able to evaluate whether that's for them or, maybe we pursue, and become an operator and follow a system that's already in place. That may open more doors for them than it would be to go and forge their path from nothing.
So I have two follow-ups now to those. My first follow-up is going to be, when we say, like, hey, we don't need 50 more excavators between here and Canada, my first initial thought is getting past that we don't have enough as it is immediately, right? So that demand, obviously, if a whole bunch of people rushed into that market because of the law of competition, they're going to run into that market, and we're going to have a whole bunch. One of the things that I feel like is that, like, that's going to make everybody better, right? Because the more competition you have in the space, it forces you to either become better than they are, and then they've got to become better than you are, and then so on, or you lose and you leave the game entirely, or you go work for the other person, or they buy your company, or whatever it is. And it's just kind of that natural system that happens with business. So with that being said, do you feel like if we were focusing on, with the younger generation, of bringing them in with the excitement of being a business owner, not smack on the butt and go get them, kid, but more of creating a system for it and creating as many blue collar business owners as we can? Is that bad? Is it good? I
think it's good. You're creating a system to provide the necessary coaching so that they could perform at the best version of themselves, right? And if they end up working for someone or working for themselves, that's still going to be successful. That's that's certainly a good message, and we need more people interested in all the work that we're doing in general. And providing that nucleus for the training is certainly the big component.
Yeah, the ability to have a mentor or a coach, which is, one of our pillars or our three truths of peak performance is everyone needs a coach. And to have mentors and coaches for that young person considering entrepreneurship and teaching them, the ins and outs of how you start a business and what it looks like and some of those nuances that they may find as they learn. And ownership isn't for me, but I will work, with you. There's value in the fact that they have a working knowledge of the business itself, and if they decide not to take a role as an owner and take a role as working as a support person, still benefited from that path of getting coached.
Yeah. What I immediately thought about with Alex is that what a great asset. Even if he does open his own business, if everyone could come to you with that mentality, interested in learning, interested in being coached, that was part of the reason why he came. He's a young guy and he's working hard. That's what you want. What happens on the backside, it doesn't, why even, think about it right now. Just continue to approach this. It's when I was involved with coaching kids, my personal approach on it wasn't necessarily to make the best wrestler. It was to help develop a young man to be the best version of themselves after that. I mean, right? It's a father, a parent, a spouse, right? All those things are a grandparent down the road. So that's really what you're looking to do, is develop the person. And that's kind of my thought process on the entire process in the school system. And as industry, we have to buckle in and suggest that we got to take ownership on it. We got to take the baton from the time we get them, whether they're 18 or they're 24 or they're 36, and continuing to develop them. And then Alex would be fine with being developed. He would be willing to follow your lead on that. Was my thought.
Well, that's my question, right? And you guys spend a lot more time in the workforce development world than I do, right? So, especially when it comes to the trades, I spend almost no time in that world, and you guys spend a significant amount of time there. So I'm wondering if there is a gap, because to me it sounds like with the current environment that we're in, if I'm looking to find employees, I'm gonna go to the young kids like Alex, and I'm say, hey, listen, I want you to come in and be an employee. And I'm going to train you, and I'm going to give you skills, and I'm going to give you training and coaching and mentoring. And then for a number of years, this is what you're going to do, and here's what you're going to make, whatever the wage is. But over time, what I'm going to either show you how to do is how to be successful running your own business, or if you're really good and you make yourself unfireable, I'm going to show you a path to ownership in this business. But is that something that we see in the workforce, or I know that it's out there, but I'm just wondering if it's out there enough.
What I think we're finding is that we're waiting. So you can't wait for the Division I level athlete to show up at your doorstep and say, I really want to perform for you. You've got to actively look and recruit them, right? The idea of finding the right people for your bus, putting them in the right seat of your bus, and getting rid of the people that shouldn't be on that bus is the job of the organization. But waiting until they come to you is not it. It might be more like the college mentality of, I'm going to start recruiting sophomores and start talking about opportunities and develop, make sure, encourage them to sit up in front of class. And as they're a junior, they're growing and expanding holistically before they even leave high school. And if they need more education, help them with that. Engineers need more education. Do they go right to Clarkson? I don't know. Do they start at Hudson Valley Community College? Maybe. So you help that as well. So that, because they're not receiving that coaching. So that's pretty extreme level of ownership, though. Not waiting and attacking that.
And that's what you feel people are currently doing.
I feel that people are going to do more of it. That's what we're seeing on a national level, and some of our time that we've spent with some of these other workforces, they're looking at developing their own. They'll call them their own university, let's say, right? It's and they've got internal training and mentoring, and that's a taking the baton and running. That's not a saying you didn't learn anything in high school, your parents didn't do a very good job with you, and frankly, your 0 to 8 subdevelopment wasn't that great either, right? I mean, we can complain about all that, but that's not going to do any good,
right?
So that it's their intention to mentor those folks when they come on.
And so what I hear you saying is that a lot of employers out there right now, what they're doing is they're waiting until the right potential hire finds them. And then when that happens and they're like, oh, I think we got a good one here, then they start to look at developing that person. And what you're saying is that we need to stop waiting and we need to start going out and finding those kids when they're still in college or maybe still in high school, and helping them come up with a plan
to
get educated, to come into their organization, showing them a path up the hierarchy.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I'm not saying that everybody, right? I know a large company like Kiwa Construction is actively recruiting boys and girls out of Clarkson to come and work for them, and I'm sure DA Collins does the same. And the big companies have a formula, but some of the smaller ones don't have that same opportunity. And that's the beauty of like the construction coalition with what's going on. There's a group of people who can help advocate for all of the folks that are involved. You don't have to be as big as Kiwa. You could be even smaller and take the benefits of some of the things they're doing. And I believe that the coalition type groups will continue to grow and expand the way that they approach the industry. And it won't be waiting. I really think it's going to be, come check us out. They're building birdhouses with sixth graders. The purpose is because they want to show them that there's things out there that they can do with their hands in the trades, right? It's an early phase.
That's like Mason Lord, who was recently on from Trades Up. He's taking that similar proactive approach and having those sessions where they're bringing kids in and
like 5-year-old kids, 6-year-old kids.
Yeah. And we're planning on going. I think it's in Connecticut, but they're doing one in October. So yeah, I agree. I think, and me personally, growing up, I had examples around me of people who, back to the entrepreneurship question, who had their own companies and they did well, and that was cool to me. So I saw that and, kind of knew from an early age that that's the path that I wanted to go down. I didn't know what it was going to be. Yeah. Later on, I figured that part out, but I always kind of had that inkling that that's what I wanted to do. So I totally agree. I think the earlier you can get to the kids, whether they do end up, owning their own company or, just becoming interested in the trades and growing and developing within an organization, I think you're spot on.
Yeah, and just exposing it. And I'd love to say that college isn't for everybody, and it's not. And however, there's a piece of me that feels that college is a really good, useful part of our upbringing, as long as it doesn't cost you $50,000 to spit out and not have anything to back it. But there's stuff there that's valuable, right? It's the being away from home. It's the obstacles of having to figure out how to show up to class on time, right? There's all these things, and you learn that when you go away, whether it's take off on a road trip or go in the military or go to college. There's a transition there. It doesn't have to be that. Yeah. You could create that similar obstacle inside of your own university, as I'm coining it. And it's, but anyways.
And I'm just thinking there's, in what an organization might do, there's many just different angles that they can approach, similar to like how a D1 athletic program in college would recruit, the best athletes and make it enticing for that athlete to come to their program. And I think that's the shift that we're starting to see. They're starting to realize that we got to do that in the space of the trades. But, beyond, recruiting in that fashion, there's also education in the sense that we need to think outside the box. Well, what other education can we provide to the community, to the parents of these young entrepreneurs, for those parents that didn't have that entrepreneurship mentor in their lives and really don't know anything about it, right? So sometimes we say, well, what did our parents teach us? That, some families come from, you go to school, you get your job, and you go work, on the
You retire
line,
in 40
right?
years.
And so even just educating the parents of the opportunities of entrepreneurship is beneficial, because it's just a lens that they haven't looked at before, because they haven't had experience or training in it. Yep. So I think that's a piece of the puzzle as well.
Yeah, all of us can agree when you get with someone who is entrepreneurial, even if they don't run their own business, they stand out. They're a peak performer inside of that industry. And then you attach that to something they love to do, and they're successful, and it fires up stuff in their brain. Now they're super powerful, right? It's getting all that combined. They don't necessarily have to own their own business, but an entrepreneurial person is super valuable to an organization.
Yeah, I feel like the ones that I see shine the most in really any industry, but it's the people that can do it, but they can also sell it, because it's such a huge part. There's so many businesses I've seen over the last 25 years of my career where I see them, they're great, they're amazing at what they do. Yep. They can't sell anything. And then they get out there and they struggle. And this is what Derek and I were talking about before, where we were talking about putting together that whole sales and marketing program for young blue collar businesses is that you have to understand that aspect of things and what it takes. And you don't have to be the outgoing salesman or woman to be, but you do have to do certain things and certain behaviors. And
and those are skills that you can learn as long as you're willing to be coached. So if you're coachable, and then it's our responsibility and obligation in industry to make sure that we have a leadership team that's going to be able to facilitate that. Because if we don't have that, then we're going to lose that opportunity. We can't have that individual coming in that's really willing to learn and be coached and then get snuffed in the first week or month, right? Because that's going to they'll either quit or they'll start climbing underneath the rock.
Are there any trades or any organizations for the trades right now that focus on that young business, that blue collar startup, so to speak? I mean, because like most of the organizations I see, and this isn't just the trades again, this is across most platforms, most support organizations are out there. They're not accessible to startups because it's just dues are expensive, association fees are expensive. You're talking thousands of dollars a year. And then on top of that, the build up time to be able to leverage those organizations for your own gain and business standpoint is lengthy. It can be 6 months to a year before you really get your bearings in an organization and how to use that to help play the game. Is there anybody that's really out there helping small business right now?
Not that I would say stands out.
Yeah.
Because they're all going to have dues, and I'm not sure there's any one organization that is also like the number one for finding you opportunities in business. I don't know of one.
Yeah. Do you guys know of any?
No, not at all.
It's interesting. Sounds like a market opportunity.
It could. There's no money in it for the association.
That's true.
Right, so
that's true.
I mean, all you're doing is looking at helping people, which I'm all behind.
Yeah.
And maybe the coalition is a better opportunity for some of that, but AGCs can't survive if they don't have membership, and membership has dues, and they got a lot of expensive stuff they got to do.
Yeah. That's always the trade-off, and it's not because they're bad people and don't want to help other people. It's just the system, right?
Right.
So if you remember, we did have T. Musto and Rob on from Fabro Industries.
Oh yeah.
And similar, well, he doesn't work with blue collar businesses typically, but essentially he works with other businesses to help. T creates the prototypes, and he works with them for figuring out what the product is going to be best brought to market as, and they develop that and take it to market. So kind of like a mini incubator, but maybe that's kind of the medium or the solution or something, a resource where they can go to figure out and ask all the questions that they need to.
Sidebar, you can check those guys out, the No Followers podcast that they have.
Oh, they do?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's called No Followers podcast. Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. Cool. And informative sometimes too.
Yeah.
So I guess, we're talking about entrepreneurship, and we're talking about workforce development and using entrepreneurship, that shiny carrot, right, to help bring people into the trades. One of the things that I feel that we'd be remiss if we did not bring up is the fact that it's not, and you mentioned this, it's not for everybody, right? Like, not everybody can handle the pressures and the stress and the fact that you never get to punch out and go home. It's always there, right? So give us your thoughts on that.
I mean, I align directly with that. Yeah, I fully understand it. It's there's a lot more to just showing up, right? And there's a lot more than just understanding the trade. There's all kinds of risks that are involved, and our brain does not like risk. We'd rather have a lot less risk, and it's a component that you got to deal with if you're going to own a business. And you have to be really good at a lot of things, and being able to navigate it. So I definitely believe and understand that business ownership is not for everybody, but the person who could do it with the right direction, that's the ideal scenario, which is back to what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, it's just, everybody talks about, entrepreneur, business owner, I'm business. And there's this, I know that a lot of people get the mentality that the business owner works less, they make all this money, they do whatever they want, and I think most business owners I know that are successful would actually say it's the other way around. Your employees don't really work for you. You work for your employees. You have to do everything that they need you to do to keep that business going, and you don't ever get to call off or punch out or any of those things. And I just trying to help people understand that as we're talking about it, like if you're someone that's thinking like, oh, I want, you're in high school or you're in college and you want to own your own business, and you're thinking like, oh, it's going to be so great, I'm going to make all this money and da da da. And I think that people don't talk enough about that's not always the case.
I wonder if we give people a false understanding of that holistically. Like, if you're a kid in school today, are you being told you're really good at a lot of stuff and, keep up the good work and super proud of you and mom and dad love you and coach is praising you, like you're in the spotlight. Mm-hmm. And then when it gets difficult, the obstacle of anything they do is a loss. And they haven't spent enough time learning how to win and lose as events in their life, not identifiers of the person, right? You're not a winner or a loser. It's an event. It happened. Yeah. And you do in business, if you go long enough, you are going to win and you are going to lose. You have to win more than lose in order to have a bank account, but you're going to have a lot of losses.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of adversity.
So are we doing a good enough job on that conversation from the time they're in kindergarten to 12th grade? And I'd argue no.
I would argue the same.
Right. I would argue that as parents and teachers and the environment that we're putting them in is not making sure that we're stressing the journey and the obstacles as good things. And they should feel good to your brain, not hurt it. And this is more Stacy's world than mine, really, because we talk about it a lot, but it just resonates anytime I get into this conversation.
Yeah, and that always goes to, regardless if we're talking about the trades or any other profession, that, we always resort back to, you can't teach enough emotional intelligence skills. So I think whether we're talking about, regular curriculum within public education, or we're talking about, the curriculum itself for a vocational school or training, there can't be enough training and education in emotional intelligence, which I think across the board is lacking.
Yeah.
And for many different reasons, from state requirements in public education to budgets and all of those things. So we really got to think outside the box when we're looking at organizations that are looking to recruit people into the trades. We got to sort of take the bull by the horns approach and figure out how we can help facilitate some of that emotional intelligence training and education into the mix. And that's where there would, conversations on growth mindset and failure and what that looks like, and exposing kids and mentorships, but at a very, middle school age is starting to dip their toes in that. Yep. Those conversations, I think, is where you need to hit.
And just for our listeners, when you say emotional, actually, for me, Stacy, it's for me. When you say emotional intelligence, what do you mean?
Well, emotional intelligence, you can, a lot of different resources, but you can kind of summarize it into sort of 4 components of self-awareness, like self-awareness skills, empathy skills, ability to step outside your comfort zone, understanding how, you interact and your behaviors and your social competences with other people. So it's the ability to have soft skills or social skills beyond just your skills or your IQ. And if you do the research on it, you look at some of the statistics, EQ outperforms IQ 90% of the time.
Why is that?
I mean, some of it is, being able to, we're human beings, so we need to be able to work with people, right, to be successful, and we need to have emotional intelligence or social skills to be able to do that. The world that we live in, I'm sure, contributes to the technology that we have, although it's amazing. It takes a lot away from that social interaction, and we need to make sure that we're doubling down on education in that when it comes to how do I make successful young people in whatever they're pursuing, whether it's trades profession or another type of profession. And my argument would be you can't provide enough of it. And I don't know, and I don't think that there's any of it within some of the vocational training that's offered.
Yeah, we're seeing it with the athletes in the high school arena, because they have an opportunity, even if they don't have a winning program or specifically, they have opportunity with coaches to discuss the goods and the bads, right? Because you can't be in an athletic event without talking about you were really bad on that shot, and here's why, right? I can't just say, you sucked at that, Michael. I have to say, you sucked at that now, but give me a few weeks, we're going to get better at it. Here's your foot position, here's how you're going to practice, here's what you're going to do. It's mini goal setting, it's expectations, it's follow-up, it's discussion, and now you're comfortable. You're in a space where you're comfortable going to the coach and saying, I really screwed that up. How do we fix it, right? Don't dwell on how you screwed it up. you're immediately having a conversation as an athlete. Okay, let's get to work, which is where they're picking up a lot of that emotional intelligence. So, and I think there's very easy ways to mix that into the curriculum. There's nothing illegal about it, right? It's but a lot of the teachers outside of, and again, I'm very biased in the coaching. That's my only component inside of a school system. I'm not a school teacher, but there's ways that we can implement that, right? There's certainly ways that that can be embedded into the school system as well. It doesn't have to be athletics, in my mind. And every organization's doing it, right? Because the AGCs are doing emotional intelligence training, the Army's doing it, all military branches, law enforcement. Right, they're all implementing it heavily.
Yeah, I feel like you had something to add there.
Yeah, athletics were a big part of me growing up, and I learned a lot from that, and a lot of it, the resilience that I think Scott, was referring to. It came from the coaches and the people that I was lucky enough to be around. You learn how to lose, just as much as you learn how to win, and at the end of the day, that's what life is all about. To your point, some days are absolutely going to be terrible and as an entrepreneur and suck, but pick yourself back up, get back out there. Even as a manager or an employee, every day is not going to be a cakewalk. And you got to get through it,
and you like the journey. You grow to like the challenge. And a lot of the wrestlers that I coached didn't necessarily care about the competition, but they loved the challenge of the preparation to get there. Winning was great, and it showed that they were in better shape and better prepared and more skill set, and especially when you're in a really good match, just like when you get a really good proposal, right, in the business world, the same thing.
Yeah,
but if you didn't get it, you're like, you lick your wounds. There's no doubt about it. It's you're like a tomcat that just got in a battle, but it hurts, but you're not physically hurt. Right, you're just emotionally hurt.
Yeah.
And what can you learn from it? And how do you get better?
The brain doesn't know the difference, though, whether we got physically beat up in a match or lost a game or lose a proposal. It acts the same to the brain. It's
That's interesting.
It's fight, it's fear, it's what did I do right, what did I do wrong. I just want to kick the crap out of that guy or girl that got the contract, right? It's like that's how your brain works. And so it's identical.
That's interesting, yeah. I know when I get a big win, man, it's like, it's the best feeling.
Cartwheels.
Yeah.
That's why you keep going back.
That's right.
It really is. It's the crack that keeps coming.
You feel
back.
Like doing what they do in the end zone, right? You're like,
oh yeah, sometimes I do.
You got your own end zone dance.
Yeah, a little bit. Little stanky leg going on.
We
whatever.
do the same thing. But that's what your brain wants you to do. It loves it.
Yeah.
But you get addicted to it. You get the dopamine from it. But that's not always going to happen. Right, and you have to be able to battle the opposite side as well.
Yeah, and I would say that's the missing piece. Is everybody can experience and feel the momentum you get from a win, but how do you bounce back from a loss? And in maybe our generation, we had some significant mentors and parents and coaches that taught us those lessons. We can't rely on that necessarily these days. I think that's where you have to be proactive, and we need to train it and teach it because we can't necessarily rely on it.
Yeah.
Just the different environments that people come from, different generations. Again, back to technology, we've got to start having those conversations and giving them tools and skill sets to how you do bounce back from a loss and how you do keep that narrative and that mindset to continue to move forward. And understand what everybody needs. If we go to some of our foundational spaces that we like to play in, we talk a lot about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a theory of human motivation. So how are we motivating that young generation? And we need to really understand that hierarchy and make sure that we're fulfilling the needs of psychological safety and esteem and belonging and acknowledgement, which is very hard to do in the world that we live in, where everything is about how great your performance is and your wins, and that's the focus, and not a whole lot of skill set and tools there unless it's brought in and trained and taught of how you come back from that.
Yeah, it's fascinating that not too long ago I read an article that a lot of highly successful IQ children, high school kids, are graduating, A students, right, top of their class. They go to college, but they get that first C and they can't handle it, right? That's the punch, that's the loss, that's the missed ball as a shortstop, and that has to be taught because they're highly successful people, really good IQ, like school, right? So we need them to be what they want to be. If it's a doctor, a lawyer, right, engineer, they got the brain for it, but we just set them up for the the worst failure of their life at the beginning of
To have
that
it be
phase, right?
completely
It's not over.
life crushing. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't be that life crushing. So I know how to do it in athletics. I don't know how to do it with that A student that isn't in athletics. Unless I was right there in the form of a teacher. I would think that, based on the grades and the effort and the time and the challenges and, stress it a lot like a Carol Dweck might mention in a growth mindset book. I'm sure there's ways to do it. It's not my arena, right? It's not my place, but you got to have it.
Well, and with the TikTok generation that's coming up, and all they're seeing is all this great stuff and all these fancy cars and all this other, it's all
the nonsense.
all
on
the nonsense.
internet, yeah.
Like, and they're telling kids, like, I think there's two pieces to this, right? The one piece is I feel like we really need to help kids understand. I get that you're seeing all this I want to be an entrepreneur stuff on social media and wherever you're engaging, content, but like there's a whole side of it that really sucks. Like it is soul crushing.
Yeah.
What you're saying,
Right.
And I don't know that kids are seeing that, so they're coming out of school right now and they're thinking, I don't want to go be an employee. I want to be a business owner, and no idea of how to get there.
Yeah.
And then no idea of what they're actually putting themselves in for. It's just
And I don't know the answer to convincing that other than all the other things that are going on with the teachers and the schools and the parent universities, let's say, on making sure that they have conversations, right? It's a not yet conversation, or it's a that's great. Here's what we have to do, right? It's I think that's a solution, right? But probably parents of a lot of the kids are saying, you'd be great. You're smart. You're handsome. You'll be a great entrepreneur. Like, that's not enough. Like, right, let's get you some financial training. Let's get you some people skills. Let's understand how to have difficult conversations. Like, if I was a coach in that situation, I'd start looking at the game plan to develop those skills that are necessary to be the entrepreneur. Not just say, you can do anything you put your mind to. It's like, no, you can't.
No, you can't.
Actually, that's not a real thing. It's we have to work on this a little bit. Let's get to the table. Let's get to the gym. We're going to meet every Tuesday, right? I mean, at least that's what I would do. If you asked me to coach your kid, this is what he wants to do, and you have a skill set that can help him, I would have a plan.
What about the other side of it, though? Like, and this was going to be my other question, is some people, and I'm one of those people for the record, so I'm talking about myself as I say bad things about humans right now, but some people are unemployable. You know what I mean? And luckily, I realized that like maybe 12 years ago, 15 years ago, that like I am not a good employee. You do not want to hire me. Legitimately, one of my friends fired me because I'm such a shitty employee.
Which one was that?
Mark Miller. Hey, Mark.
Oh, he was on the show.
Yeah, we brought him on for sure. He's the only person that ever fired me. But I'll tell you, I'm sure a lot of other people wanted to fire me. And
it's a great episode too.
Because he's good. Mark's great. Big believer in personal and professional development. Great human. Very successful with his company. But that was the thing that made me realize that, like, because Mark was a client previous to that when I was doing consulting, working for Sandler Training. And we got along great. And then I went to work for him. And it was the worst experience of my life. I'm sure it wasn't great for him, and it made me realize, though, that, like, I'm unemployable. I'm not meant to work for other people. I'm too strong-willed. I'm too strong-headed. I have my own vision. I'm driven. Sometimes I'm disciplined. And I wonder, like, should we be looking to help kids identify that fact earlier on? Because I know that's not a conversation that happens in high school. That you're unemployable.
I'd push back and say you're on the wrong bus.
Yeah.
Get on the right bus and put your skill set to work and find your strengths and focus on them and navigate your weaknesses or assist you. You're on the wrong bus with the wrong coach and the wrong team. That's all. And maybe it is a team all on your own, right? I don't really know, but if you feel like that, you're on the wrong bus. And whoever is involved with driving the bus, they got to adjust it accordingly.
Yeah,
and it's.
But I'd say there's a process that led you to that confidence, right? So I don't know if you necessarily would have that mindset or that confidence right at the get-go at age 16, 17, right?
It was straight up arrogance.
At 16 and 17?
At 18, my whole life, absolutely. Because more so when I was younger. I mean, I can tell you because every time I had a job, I could do it better than those people, at least in my mind, right? Yeah. And like I'd have the boss and I'd be like, oh, he's an idiot. I could do this way better if I was on blah, blah, blah. That bullshit conversation that we all hear.
Yeah, I would say that I would be similar. And it even drove me more when people would tell me that you can't do it. I'm a college dropout. I got into college only because I wrestled and had some skill set, and then here we are. But, as you go through even elementary school, people are constantly telling you, you're not going to go anywhere, right? I mean, that was the generation we were in. So
you can't say that anymore, though.
Huh?
The kids don't get told that anymore.
Yeah, maybe it was good or maybe it was bad, but it's, I don't know if there's an actual answer on the backside. But sure, there's some people that are not as good employees as they are owners.
But they might make great business owners and entrepreneurs.
Great business owners, entrepreneur people, but you could also create a formula that everyone has some ownership. There's a lot of companies right now are 100% employee owned. Mm-hmm. Stewart's is fully employee owned. Reifenberg just switched to it. We heard that from Pete when he was on the podcast, right? So that's a thing, and you get to actually visually see how much stock you have in the operation. You might be more successful in something if you like those two groups. You got a lot more stake in the game. Well, I don't know.
And those companies are kind of showing the way. I feel like when they're hiring people, they already have a path that you can become an owner of this company in some fashion.
Yes.
And that's, I think, a lot of why they're able to recruit people and why they don't have the staffing issues that a lot of other people do.
It could be. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if they have staffing issues or not, right? I'm speaking out of turn, but I do see it being a little bit of a trend. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure why.
Well, this goes back to my original question. It's because I feel that kids coming up in high school right now and getting into college, everything they're seeing in media is about being rich and famous and an influencer and all these things. And so all of them want that status.
Yep.
And so, but many of our workforce development initiatives don't even discuss it. They don't even touch on it. They just want you to come in and be a wage slave.
Yeah.
And no one wants to be a wage slave. So it's like, how do we harness that desire that everyone has to be an entrepreneur to help organizations staff?
Yeah.
Because if I'm a blue collar business owner and there is a path in my organization for you to either become my business partner or we're employee owned or whatever it is, and I can show you that when I recruit you, but listen, it's to Stacy's point, there's a process to get here. You don't walk in day one and get handed 50% of my company. You have to come in. You're going to be a laborer for 3 years. Here's what we're going to pay you. Then from laborer, you're going to go to project manager. And that's going to be 2 years. And then from there, you're going to do this. And once you have proved yourself to be unfireable and all these things, and you've learned the business, then here comes, I don't know, a junior partnership, an equity share, or whatever it is. And I don't know that we have all these workforce development issues, and this is why I want to have this conversation. I'm not sure that they're having that conversation.
I don't know either. And I wonder if it's motivation enough for the majority, because I don't think the majority are in that situation. I think the majority are interested. 80% are interested in working for someone. Show me what to do, and I'm going to do a really good job doing it. So those... first you're going to have to digest that and figure out who would want to be in those positions, which you should be able to do. And then you still got to be able to manage the rest of them. And the Gallup books on management, one of them being 12 Elements of Great Management, has 13 as the most important thing to people. 13 is pay, 14 is benefits, and 15 is the president of the company. So there's 12 other things that are more important to highly engaging your staff than money. Which is interesting to me. I mean, we constantly talk about if I got more money, I'd work for you, or I'm not leaving this place, or I'm leaving this place for more money. But that's none of the research over the last 25 years is saying that it's money. So it's bigger than that. And I got to think that most of the time when people are thinking entrepreneur, it's like you're saying, it's money. I want to be a business owner because of all of this opportunity to make as much money.
Well, and status.
Yeah.
I mean, status is a big piece. Everybody wants to be the big cheese.
Big title.
Yeah, they want the title. And I know a couple of years ago, or I guess more than a couple of years ago, it's like 5 years ago, I polled the employees in a couple of companies that we worked with and ours, and to ask them, like, hey, if I want you to take on more responsibility and have more buy-in for what we're doing, what would it take? Would it be money? Would it be stewards' gas cards?
Paid time off?
Paid time. And all of them said PTO.
Yeah.
Every one of them said PTO.
Yeah.
Which was amazing to me.
It is, because you can give that fairly freely in a lot of industry.
Yeah.
A lot of business. Right? Yeah. As long as you're not overscheduled and understaffed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I thought it was money. I thought everybody's going to be money motivated.
I thought it was money. And we've spent a significant amount of time looking at all this research. And just recently, another poll came out, but it's still all saying the same thing. There's There's things that are around emotional intelligence, right? If you have good emotional intelligence as a supervisor, leader, owner, when you're sharing that and coaching your employees, they're more likely to stay, and it's more important than money, benefits, and the president, right? Which in small company, you're the president, but they care less about those 3 things than these 12 other things, which is a lot around my opinion counts at work. My ideas are heard. I have time for review, right? They're very, I would call them all emotional intelligence areas, really, if I had to summarize them.
And then, when you are able to provide that engaging environment for your employee, then they go home better versions of themselves because of the fact that they've had those esteem and belongings and some of those Maslow's needs met at work, and they're more present at home, and they're less stressed, and they have more quality time with their children, their significant others, and then they're going to come back the next day energized and ready to go and drive home at night again fulfilled. And that's kind of the cycle of what we want to be able to provide the people that work with you. So
Out of curiosity, where does recognition fall into those?
In the top 12.
In the top 12.
Yeah, it's in those 12s. Ideally recognized for things that you're doing right. 3 times as many as things doing wrong, which is another component inside of our industry. We're very quick to say, you screwed that up, you screwed this up, you screwed this up. You do it again, you're going to have time off, right? Versus ever recognizing, good job on that, a boy, a fist bump, I appreciate you at my table. So yeah, recognition and praise is among the top 12. So it's fascinating. I mean, it's really around the people skills, which Stacy was talking about earlier, and all working together. The ideal situation, in my mind, inside of a work place, whether it's construction, mining, general industry, is that just treat everybody the same, right? If they decide they want to leave to start their own business, figure out a way to help them and make them as successful as possible. Don't constantly camp out in the corner like I don't want them to see anything, learn anything, be exposed to anything, because they could take my business, or they could take some of my customers,
your next
right?
competitor. Yeah.
So forget all that. And I'm not sure who said it. It might have been Henry Ford. But the worst thing you do is have a bunch of people that are untrained, unproductive, and not putting out good quality. The best thing you have is the most trained, highest paid, most quality folks, the most engaged, right? That's the best thing you can do. And I think that's a good motto. You can't be scared of them leaving.
Well, I feel like that's our job as business owners, right? Is to figure out, how do I get people that if they were my competitors, I'd be worried, and then give them a reason to stay and not become my competitor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because we get defensive on all that. And so it becomes a toxic work environment, and everyone's working with stress and anxiety, and they're actively looking for other work while they're working for you. They're completely unengaged, and that number keeps going up. It's like $550 billion lost in our country due to unengaged employees. It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And we could probably figure out a way, I know we could, how many people work in our country and what does that cost per person at every company. Let's say it's $15,000. The most unengaged employee costs you $15,000. The most highly engaged costs you $2,000. They spend a little extra time at the water cooler. They might take an extra long smoke break, but for the most part, they're on. The most unengaged is literally stealing tools and equipment out of your equipment trailer when they go home at night, right? So it's like, what is that dollar amount? And so that helps to draw in, this is why it's so important. Emotional intelligence, highly engaged people, cost you less, are more productive, are more safe, have better quality work. That's really the discussion. And that's what everyone should be working for. Because I think they also make, before you talk, they make better fathers, better mothers, right? They, as Stacy said, they're better with everything.
Yeah.
They're better in our churches, they're better in our communities, they're better on our boards, they're better on, every single person is better for it.
I know we're getting close on time here. What time is it?
3:05.
Oh, it is. Okay, we got to wrap it up. Stacy, you brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs a few times, and I feel like we could do a show just on that and how to use that inside your business.
Yeah, I mean, I said it's one of our fundamentals when we talk about peak performance, but truly understanding Maslow's on a high level, and that we all have an innate desire to be self-actualizers. So at its simplest, the best versions of ourselves, right? So having that roadmap and understanding that as an employer of how can I support you to be the best version of yourself, right? And maybe that's the roadmap. And I always think of your, diagram that you have on your wall. This is exactly what you need to do to reach the highest levels. And there's always opportunities to grow for you. And this is what it looks like. You have a very clear path. But we have that desire as humans, And I feel that when, you have that innate desire and you're constantly in an environment where you don't have your needs fulfilled or you don't have the opportunities to do that, that's where sometimes anxiety and depression lives. And so we need to be mindful of that and that holistic approach of how we're providing that to the people we work with.
Yeah, we could definitely do an entire talk on Maslow's and psychological safety and ownership and accountability, those components that
We're gonna.
that turn into the pillars to highly every top performer has these. Right, that's really a discussion. Doesn't matter what industry they're in, they all have these. They're very good here.
So to wrap it up, closing thought.
Fun as always, right? Looking forward to more opportunity to have conversations, throw some things on the table. I think we, as a group, holistically in the blue collar world, we can continue to grow and expand as a team versus being on our own little islands.
For sure. D, closing thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. You guys are full of knowledge, when it comes to really engaging people and getting the best out of them. So I appreciate you guys joining us, and I look forward to the next conversation.
Yeah.
Stace?
Yeah, I say if we stick to our true thought of, we all have to identify as coaches, I think conversations like this and discussions and spreading awareness of just thinking outside the box in ways that schools and vocational training and leaders in the trades industry can contribute to putting new ideas out there and recruiting and educating people is the way to go, and that's the true coach mentality.
Yeah, I love that. There's lots of ingredients, right? I mean, that's really the message. You can't just put one ingredient in.
That's right.
You need it all. Sprinkle it all in.
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's part of the fun of it.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for coming on the show again.
Absolutely.
I know we've got
Good to see
some
everybody.
other ideas. We're going to be getting back together here soon and having similar discussions on other topics.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for listening. Of course, like I said, we're going to be mixing up a format. We're still going to do our interviews and still going to be doing some of the blueprint releases, but we also wanted to explore some of the challenges that business owners are facing, whether it's workforce development, accountability, things that Scott said. Because as business owners, our number one job is solving problems, and typically within our business, but also for our clients. So keep on listening and appreciate it. Real quick shout out. Just want to thank our sponsors as well. People's and Michael's Group and MLB and Bonaccio Construction. Thanks guys so much. And I know that we've got another thing coming up right after this in the outro. So, but thank you so much for what you make possible. And thanks to our listeners. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Rumble, YouTube. Thanks everybody.
And that wraps up another episode of Blue Collar Startup. A big thank you to our sponsors, 5 Towers Media, Daigle Cleaning Systems, Daigle Fire Solutions, The Michaels Group, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, People's, and Catamount Consulting for making this podcast possible. And thank you for tuning in. If you learned something or felt inspired, connect with us on our website at bluecollarstartup.io or email us at hardhat.bcsu@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your questions and topic ideas. Help us spread the word by sharing the show and following us on social media for updates. Until next time, keep on building, keep on dreaming, and keep hustling like your future depends on it.